Stingley just got paid, but is there still room to sign a receiver like Stefon Diggs? Well, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about the finances. We're going to talk about the need for it. This is the Texans Better Talk Show. Don't forget to like and subscribe for daily Texans content. Really appreciate the community we've been building here. Also have a different setup that I'm borrowing, not at my normal spot, a little out of town right now, but thank y'all for tuning in nonetheless. So let's just get straight into this. Is there room for Diggs after the massive Stingley contract? Well, first, let's talk about the Stingley contract. $90 million for 3 years. Now, $89 million of it is guaranteed, which is kind of ridiculous. Like, why are we guaranteeing $89 million? Let's just guarantee the full 90. Just pay the guy. I'm wondering what that incentive is. Probably a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro, whatever that incentive is. But $89 million guaranteed. Let's just call it 90 for 3 years. Now, I'm sure you guys know by now, this not only reset the cornerback market, it completely destroyed it. J.C. Horn, who signed a couple weeks earlier with the Panthers, is making $25 million a year. He's the closest to Stingley in this market. Jalen Ramsey, $24.1 million a year. Patrick Surtain II, who's the only corner you could really argue is better than Stingley right now, $24 million a year. Jair Alexander, great corner from Green Bay, $21 million a year. So there's a $6 million per year gap between Derek Stingley and Patrick Surtain. That's something we can talk about. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Derek Stingley's not worth it, but if you wanted to make some reservations about the contract, what could you make? Well, the first thing you could make is this contract got done early. This contract got done before Sauce Gardner. I'm not saying Derek Stingley would have been competing with Sauce Gardner. Let's say Sauce Gardner makes, let's say Sauce Gardner does his contract first and he gets, X amount. Yeah, Stingley would have to be paid more than that, obviously. So, Stingley's been performing better than Sauce as of late when it matters. So I like that they did it before Sauce Gardner. I like that they got that out of the way. That being said, I don't know if you really want to go $5 million more than the closest guy. Like I said, J.C. Horn, $25 million a year. I was expecting the contract to be in like the 26, 27 range. But it definitely feels like the team is rewarding Stingley. Look, his play deserves it. I mean, he deserves to reset the market. He deserves to shatter the market, obviously earning that All-Pro designation this past year. But let's talk about some reservations I have with it. And the biggest reservation with Stingley is his health. Guys, this is the only season in his college or NFL career where he has been completely healthy. One season. One out of like 4 or 5 seasons. Let's start with 22, LSU. He only played three games and had that foot fracture. In 2022, plays 9 games, goes out with the hamstring, ultimately ends his season. You can argue the Texans were tanking. That's fine. Still, 2023, 11 games played with the hamstring. So, the hamstring's been a problem. And then in 2024, obviously 17 games played, all pro. This doesn't count playoff games, obviously. But look, there was no doubt in our minds that if Stingley stayed healthy, he would be one of the best cornerbacks in the league. And now that he's done that, he's been paid as the best cornerback in the league. But does that 1 year of health erase the injury concerns you had pretty much throughout his whole entire career before that? Now, you can argue that the contract, what I really love about the contract is that it's short. It's only 3 years more, whereas most of these other cornerbacks got paid for 4 years, for 5 years. So maybe the Texans factor that into it. They don't want to be stuck with this huge amount of money if he's going to get injured and then they have to pay him for 5 years. I understand that aspect of it. But I also like how they still tied him to the team till 2030 because this contract basically kicks in on the back end of his, 5th year rookie deal, that type of thing. So he will be on the team until 2030 when he's set to be a free agent. So I do like that aspect of the deal. The Texans are definitely trying to get ahead of the cornerback kind of market. They're trying to just get out there and pay their guy and then have him for 5 more years. So all things considered, I do like the contract. We could be sitting here next year and Sting's missing, 5 or 6 games, God forbid, but it wouldn't be out of the question if you look at his track history. So that's really my only reservation with the contract. He deserves it, though. Shout out Sting. So now let's talk about Stefon Diggs, and let's talk about if the Texans still have room with their cap space situation to go ahead and re-sign another receiver like Stefon Diggs. Now, look, I'm not saying it has to be Stefon Diggs, but Stefon Diggs is probably one of the best options. You're looking at Keenan Allen, who probably wants to stay where he's at. Amari Cooper seems a little washed. Brandon Cooks, remember those days. Deontay Johnson's a definite no. You could talk about Tyler Lockett. He's getting up there in age, though, at 32. And then you've got Robert Woods, I'd say, who's 33. After that, it pretty much, there's really no one. I mean, everyone else would be competing for like wide receiver 4 or 3. I guess the only other name would be like Nelson Aguilar, but I don't know. My point is Stefon Diggs is definitely the most enticing player available on this list. He also was the highest paid player available on this list last year, making $22.3 million in 2024. We remember Stefon Diggs, his story well. 8 games played, 47 catches, basically 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. Was on pace for an 1,000-yard season. Was very productive in that Bobby Slowick offense. 2 of those touchdowns coming in the first week, by the way, against the Colts, but look, the reality is one torn ACL. He's 31 years old. The Texans already offered him a team-friendly deal, which I have that in quotes because that just means a cheap deal. They offered him a cheap deal, and he ultimately hasn't taken it, doesn't like it. Maybe he's negotiated it. I don't know. Look, the one thing we can say about Stefon Diggs, and kind of in a positive way if you're a Texans fan, is the free agency market has not been kind to Stefon Diggs. I know there were a lot of kind of analysts out there, ESPN analysts, saying that there would be a lot of teams in the mix for Stefon Diggs, and Stefon Diggs' value in free agency is expected to skyrocket. Well, I don't know if that's true anymore. Devontae Adams, currently the highest paid receiver this free agency, signed a 2-year deal with the Rams, $22 million. 26 of that is guaranteed. So that's about what Stefon Diggs made last season. It's not looking like he's going to get that $22 million a year deal. I was comfortable giving him 12. So I also understand that there's that discrepancy. I believe the Texans now, after all the Stingley stuff, have about $18 million in cap space. I mean, I would be happy giving Diggs 12. There's also the fact you have to factor in the Christian Kirk kind of signing and the fact that Christian Kirk is going to act like our new slot receiver, really play that Diggs role. So then the question is, well, is there overlap? And then if I get Diggs and overpay for him, like, am I going to be able to still draft a weapon? I still think you would be able to, but definitely some other factors. Regardless, what I think we can take away from this is teams aren't looking at Stefon Diggs like a prime receiver, obviously, and I don't think he should be looked at that way. Significant ACL injury, 31 years in age. Texans already offered him a deal, though. Look, I would be fine bringing back Diggs if the price was right. I just don't know what he's looking for. I don't know if he necessarily needs to play in Houston. And that brings me to kind of talk about the current wide receiver room. So this is an order left to right, top to bottom. Nico Collins is your wide receiver 1. Christian Kirk right now is your wide receiver 2. Some people may be more comfortable with him being a wide receiver 3. I definitely think Kirk can be a wide receiver 2 if he has a great season. Mainly plays in the slot, like I said, like that Stefon Diggs type of player, but can also play in that X position, can get outside every now and then. Then you've got Justin Watson coming over from the Chiefs. He's probably your wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 3 on like a good day. He's been more productive than Mechie and Hutchinson, which is why they're at the bottom. I also have Braxton Berrios, who signed with the team 1 year, $2 million, ahead of John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson because, well, he has special teams capabilities. I know John Mechie has been on special teams before, like delivering tackles and blows and things like that. But the reality is Mechie can't return punts. That's why he's at the very end. Also, we've seen Xavier Hutchinson return kickoffs. I don't think he'll be asked to do that coming up this year with Tremon Smith, the special teams ace the Texans signed. And then I doubt he'll be able to I doubt he'll be asked to return punts with Berrios as well as Tremon Smith as well. So the point I'm trying to make here is 2 of your like wide receiver 3s and wide receiver 4s last year might not make the team. I mean, if the Texans plan on drafting a guy and maybe signing another receiver like Diggs, for example, let's just use that, there's a real chance that John Mechie doesn't make this team. I probably think it's for the best. I think John Mechie had a great, run in Houston. He's been through a lot. I respect that. But I just don't think he makes the team this year, assuming the Texans make more moves to put receivers in these spots. Because let's say they only take 5 receivers. I mean, you're looking at Mechie to beat out Hutchinson. The reason I have Hutchinson ahead of Mechie is simply because the upside's there. I've seen Hutchinson make bigger catches in bigger moments. I'm not in love with Hutchinson being, your wide receiver 4 even at all, but maybe your very last guy in the wide receiver room. Hutchinson's got more physical attributes as well, and he's probably done more in terms of catch. I don't have the exact stats on me, but it's either close or Hutchinson probably has a slight lead. Obviously catching that wild ball in the playoffs against the Chargers. So this is kind of where the wide receiver room's at, and that's why, again, I do think it would make sense to sign another receiver in free agency like Stefon Diggs. The issue is the finances. We don't want to overpay for a receiver, And look, if you're looking at this room and you just want to draft a guy and hope that that guy can compete for the 2 or 3 spot, I guess that's fine as well. But what do you guys think about this situation? What do you guys think about the Derek Stingley contract? Do you like it? Did we overpay? Do you still see a world where the Houston Texans can go ahead and sign Stefon Diggs or a Keenan Allen or a receiver like that? Do you want to see it? Or are you really just happy with the wide receiver room that we currently have, as well as drafting a guy? So that's really all I got for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and I will see y'all in the next one, man. Peace out.